Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Third Thursday 30. We hope you are excited to hear about Agile, CMMI, and ISO 9001, and how we can integrate those, what they look like in an ISO 9001 system. It really is pretty simple, and we're looking forward to sharing this with you. We meet every third Thursday of every month, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and again at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're excited to have you with us. Agile is the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we'll talk about CMMI. We'll talk about ISO 9001, and then we'll talk about what they are integrated and what they are in each system. So Agile is also a software. Matter of fact, when I usually say Agile, people say, oh, it's a software. No, it's also a methodology. It's a way of thinking. Scrum, it's a way of thinking. Basically, it's a way to deploy iterative thinking. It's a way to break up tasks and help a cross-functional team to work together as if they had one mind. It's a very great tool. It really does foster collaboration. The reason we do Scrum or Agile is it enables teams to deliver faster. It also creates better quality, predictable quality, and a greater aptitude. If you have to respond to a change, you have the ability to do that very well with a Agile or a Scrum tool in place. It's a disciplined management approach. It's primarily for project management. Again, it is best practices for engineering. It is considered the best practices. Its original purpose was to deliver software fast. So that's what it grew out of, but I've seen it used in a mechanical design department using this type of task on a project. I've seen it used in a chemical plant. So very often it is a very flexible tool. In a nutshell, you have 5 buckets of task, and each task is in a different level of completion. So you have the stories. The first thing is the stories, the things that you knew that caused you to start off on this project. It helps to keep you in focus. It's like the inputs. And then out of that, the next thing are the unstarted tasks. And those are things that you know in the project have to get done. They have time limits on them. In other words, the task that you pick up may say that you can only work on it for 30 minutes. Well, there'll be some kind of leeway that your team has been giving each other where it might be 30 plus or minus 15 minutes. It might be you have to stop as soon as you get to the end of the 30 minutes, but you can finish early. The point of this is if you get to that time limit, you have to get help from the team. You have to go and say, I'm stuck, and get help to finish the task. So it keeps you from spinning your wheels and also getting off task. So you have a bucket for stories, the inputs. The second bucket is unstarted task, all that list of things that would be in your spreadsheet or your Gantt chart as tasks to do. Then you have tasks that have been started, and they have been picked up from one bucket and put in another bucket. Then you have tasks that have been completed. They've been put in another bucket. And then most of the time you have a final bucket where the task that you've completed has either been reviewed and approved, validated, something has been done to it to take it forward and say, yes, we agree it's done. So here's just an example of what a whiteboard might look like in an Agile project. We would have our inputs, our stories in our first bucket. Then here are all the tasks that we've got to do. And remember, they have time limits on them. So we'd walk up to the board, pick up a task, move it into the in progress bucket, and we would start work on our task. If our task said 3 hours, plus or minus 15 minutes, when we get near that 3-hour mark, we're going to know we need to stop and get help from the team if we're stuck, or get permission to use additional time. Again, so then once we have finished our work, we're finished with it. We're going to move it over into the testing bucket. From the testing bucket, after it's completely tested, it will be moved into the done bucket. So Agile is project management, or it can be used in design and development. Matter of fact, if you think about it, this is the stories are the inputs, the to-dos are the design plan, the in progress are the things that you are working on, and it will include some design reviews, verification, validation, and then when the task is done. There's a little bit more to this. There's certain time limits even for the team to work on a project. It has a deadline. So there's a little bit more to this, but it still helps you to meet that 8.1 and 8.3 requirement. 8.1 is when you're planning product realization. So that would be when you were planning a project. 8.3 is more design and development. CMMI is a requirement for most of the Department of Defense suppliers. There's actually a certification that has to be sought and obtained from the CMMI Institute to be able to participate as a Department of Defense supplier. It really is a measure of the maturity model of the organization. You can apply it. It is very easy to apply whether you're a simple, small organization or you're a complicated, large organization. It's very flexible. The maturity levels are based on how well your organization has embraced ISO 9001, the requirements in ISO 9001. Technically, it doesn't ever reference ISO 9001, but we know that those are the same kinds of things we have to do, and I'll show you that in just a minute. The bottom line is CMMI, the purpose is to ensure the organization has planned processes, they're measuring the performance of their processes, and they're improving on their performance of their processes. Sounds like what we're used to incurring in our ISO 9001. So CMMI talks about two types of maturity. It talks about organizational maturity, and then it talks about organizational capability. And an organization is capable if it is mature. Okay, so let's look at the 5 levels of maturity in CMMI. The first level is where most companies start out. Their processes are unpredictable. They're reactive. Work does get done, but it's oftentimes delayed, late, or over budget. That's where a lot of companies live. And that's when they are in that level 1 of the maturity model. Level 2, they are starting to manage projects. They have processes. They're beginning to plan. They're beginning to perform. They're beginning to measure themselves. They're beginning to look at themselves and see what they can improve. They're getting started. They're headed in the right direction. The third one is the organization has become more proactive. They're looking at ways we can prevent problems. They are establishing standards. And by standards, I mean methods to do their work, methods to know if their work is done properly. So they're establishing processes. Those processes are helping the organization to know its shortcomings, and they're beginning to address them, and their goal is to improve. They've started to drink the Kool-Aid. Number 4, they are quantitatively managed. This organization at a level 4 would begin to become a data-driven organization. Maybe there's a certain set of data they look at daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually to see the trends and to look at the trends to see what they need to change to make things better. Optimizing is where not only are they monitoring and measuring but they're improving those processes, and we're seeing some significant improvement. They're becoming very stable, predictable. They're becoming an optimized organization. The second level of maturity that we talked about the maturity levels there, but it's also we have capability levels. And in the initial of a capability level, they're lost. They still don't have that set of practices. It's the same kind of type of thing. In level 2, they've got their practices in place, and they're addressing improvement. And defined is they're focused on organizational improvement through objectives and achieving their planned expectations. I found this data at the CMMI Institute, and I want you to think about who you are and where you fit as we talk about this. 50% of organizations do not have processes set up. They don't have the job aids in place to communicate their expectations. 42% have no established planning process. They don't even think about risk and trying to mitigate risk in their planning of their processes. 41% aren't encouraging their employees to help them improve the organization's processes and the organization. 60% of the people are not engaged. Oh my. 33% say they don't know how to figure out what to monitor and measure and how to make adjustments and what to do when things go wrong. They don't know how to analyze the data and figure things out. 54% do not measure what matters. Give you an example of that. So many people measure on-time delivery. Is that what matters? Or does it matter that you measure, did you start the project on time? If you don't start on time, chances are you're going to be late. That's the type of a poor statement on what we are. So how do you integrate this? What is this? Just refreshing your mind on what ISO 9001 states as processes of the management system of an organization. And these are things the CMMI requires us to do. Remember, it said we've got to plan our processes to even be a level 3. So if we plan our processes, that means we have implemented clause 4, clause 5, clause 6, and we have not only determined our risk, but we have started to think about what we're going to do to mitigate our risk. So level 3, we've planned and we're beginning to do. In the doing, we have established mitigations for our support processes, and we have established mitigations for the risk in our main processes, the processes that when we do them, clause 8, the production clause, the service clause. So those are all, we have to be at a 7 or an 8, clause 7 and 8, in order to be at a level 3 in the CMMI. And then we're going to begin to check, which is clause 9. And there we are stepping up into clause 4, level 4. And then as we begin to act to drive improvement, we will begin to step up into that optimizing level 5. Integration, CMMI basically is very similar to ISO 9001. Follow the ISO requirements and you'll meet the CMMI requirements pretty much. Agile and Scrum, just as a comment, I would encourage you, if you do any kind of design and development or project management, to apply Agile thinking. It really is a tool to make sure you're effective and efficient. Here's one more way to look at the CMMI and ISO. Notice I've pointed out that you get to level 3 and you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 done. Clause 9 is level 4. Clause 10 is level 5. So, in summary, if you implement ISO 9001 and its principles, you pretty much be done with CMMI. And then I want to encourage you to use Agile in your project management. It really is that simple. They really are that similar. Thank you. Once again, you have joined us for Third Thursday 30. I want to remind you that if you go to our website, ce-q.com, we have free templates for you. And we also, if you need to call me, if you want to talk about your ISO management system, give me a call at 229-798-0277. And then if you want to send me an email, it's Deborah at ce-q.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. We're always trying to help you see how you can simplify your complex ISO management system.